morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, January 17th, 2018. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm very happy to be joined by Steve Helwagen. Steve, only 3 Buckeyes left early for the NFL. I mean, maybe back in the 90s, it'd be like, wow, they're losing 3 guys early. Now it's like they're only losing 3 guys early, and the guys that left early, I think we all knew were going to leave. Denzel Ward, we all knew he was going to leave. Sam Hubbard, he even went through senior tackle. I guess Jerome Baker, there was some question, but I thought he was definitely going to leave. Getting Dre'Mont Jones back is huge. Getting Paris Campbell back is huge. Just talk about some of these guys that maybe were on the fence but decided to come back, like Dre'Mont Jones.
Definitely. I think you make a great point on Jones, and he was very effective, I thought, as a defensive tackle, not the nose tackle. I would say that was probably more Tracy Sprinkle this past year, but you played Dre'Mont Jones inside quite a bit. He has bulked up to around 285, 290 pounds, and I think it is a possibility that Larry Johnson may move him back outside because you have a plethora of players inside who can play those 2 tackle positions with Hamilton and Landers and Ja'Shawn Cornell potentially, and Cornell could be another one that also moves outside and helps them, because I'm very concerned about that defensive end depth. You have Nick Bosa, Chase Young, those 2 guys. I'm missing the one other guy.
Jonathan Cooper?
Jonathan Cooper, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's a question in my mind about that. But overall, yes, the early signing thing did not take, or the early departure concept did not take too big of a bite out of the Buckeyes this year. I was just thinking about it in my mind. On offense, you got to plug in a left tackle and a center, and I think that they've got the people there to do that. And then on defense, you got to find at least one defensive end. You're pretty well set at defensive tackle. Linebacker is probably the biggest question mark because you're relying on Borland and Booker, a couple guys who each started about half the season. But you've got 4 or 5 very good players there ready to go. And then, of course, at corner, if Sheffield and Okudah play anything like what they did, they were kind of a mixed bag, I guess, against USC. They did give up some yardage, but, you've got those 2 guys ready to plug in there. And then on the safety position, Pryor, Sean Wade, whoever it may be, if they move Wade over there, I think they're going to be okay at safety. I don't worry about that at all. So, I think that this team should be able to hit the ground running in 2018, and everybody seems to have them in their top 4, at least at this point, so far out, but just based on what's coming back.
I did a story for the site yesterday that there's been a lot of debate on the boards, people going back and forth. The top 15 players for Ohio State in 2017, according to the grades from Pro Football Focus, and I went in order, and I'm going to say these out loud to you, the top 15 players in order, and just I want to hear if you have any issues, any problems with any of these guys being ranked where they are. We'll go right down the list. Number 1, Nick Bosa was the best player on the team, followed by number 2, Denzel Ward, then Jamarco Jones, number 3, great year out of him. Damon Webb, 4th best player on the team. J.K. Dobbins, 5th. Isaiah Prince, most improved player on the team from one year to the next, 6th best player on the team. He even graded higher than number 7, Billy Price, who was the best center in college football. Tuff Borland was 8th. Brandon Bowen, even though he missed half the season, was 9th. Shows how good he is. J.T. Barrett, 10th. Jerome Baker, 11th. Dante Booker, 12th. That's one that raised some eyebrows. Dre'Mont Jones, 13th. Jordan Fuller and Sam Hubbard tied for 14th. What do you think about that list, Steve?
Those are some impressive rankings, I think. I'm along the lines on a lot of that. I think Denzel Ward was probably the most efficient player. And here's the thing is what you may or may not miss, I'm sure they're looking at the All-22 tape, is a lot of cases people didn't throw his way, but a lot of cases they did, and he made plays on the ball. He had as many passes deflected as anybody in the country, I think, or he was way up there. So, he didn't have a lot of interceptions, maybe only a couple of those or whatever, but he was very efficient. And the other one was Wilson, Kevin Wilson. We asked him kind of at the 2/3 part of the season, who he thought was really playing at the efficient level on offense. And Billy Price was the name that just came back because he set the blocking up front. He was about 98, 99% accurate on his snaps, it seemed at times. there was usually about one a game that may have floated on him or something, but for a guy who'd never really done it a whole lot just as a backup, in pregame and before practice, they would have him snap every day, but didn't do a whole lot of it in 11-on-11 situations. For him to have flourished and done as well as he did, and now he's set up to be, kind of like Elfline, with the Vikings. I think probably a 10, 12-year pro if he stays healthy. So I think those two guys in my mind stood out. Who was number one on your list again? I'm drawing a blank on that.
Nick Bosa, and I should say this, Nick Bosa and Denzel Ward almost graded off the charts. Like anything 85 and above is considered elite, and that's where Marco Jones was like at 86. Their grades were in the 90s. They each graded at 91, which for hardly anybody in the country does that. So Nick Bosa and Denzel Ward both graded those guys were just graded off the charts.
I would agree with Nick Bosa. I thought he was very efficient as well. And dominant is a word. You grade his tape, and on a lot of plays, the way he would blow things up, and maybe he doesn't make the sack, but he, he creates a situation where somebody else makes a negative play for the opposing offense, and he should get 2 pluses on that. And those are the things that the if you don't have the all-22 tape or you're not running it back 5 times or whatever, you don't necessarily see it as it unfolds, and he doesn't get credit for a tackle or a sack or anything, but he made a lot of plays to make other guys better or to make plays for other guys, kind of like setting them up with an assist in basketball. So I think, that is certainly warranted, and I think he's got an even better year of football. As we all know, Joey, same thing, better year of football ahead of him. He's going to be double and triple teamed quite a bit. Let me think. Hubbard was clear down at 14. I come and go on Hubbard. He would have some flash plays like Penn State and obviously the Cotton Bowl against USC. He was dominant. But then there would be long stretches where you would say, is Sam Hubbard playing in this game? He was able, maybe it's a size thing, maybe he was able to be neutralized by some tackles and maybe not by some others. I don't know, but 14 seems low for him because he seemed to always be involved in something, but maybe not as efficient as Bosa was. The rest of it I would agree with. I like Dobbins where he was. I thought he had an awesome year. He really did.
He really did. What about Booker, though? Booker's the one I had a problem with at 12. That was the one I had a problem with. Booker at 12. I mean, the guy lost. The guy was benched. He lost his job. Yeah. I just feel like, Robert Landers, I thought, was a guy that was blowing up the line of scrimmage, and he graded out pretty well. He was just outside the top 15. But I was surprised that a guy like Dante Booker graded out higher than Robert Landers. But overall, I thought the list was really good. There was just a couple that were pretty interesting.
Yeah. I would say on Booker, the same thing as Baker. The first 2/3 of the season, you were looking for those Darren Lee, game-changing plays, and they just never happened. Neither one of those guys played particularly well the first 2/3 of the season. Thankfully, Baker came on at the end when they needed him the most, and he was dominant. Wisconsin, USC, those games he was great. But yeah, this season to me, Dave, is going to be remembered in a lot of ways, and it's kind of cool that they played the Big Ten schedule that they did with 9 games. They played Army early in the season, and they also played Oklahoma. Then they got to play Wisconsin in the championship game, and then they got to play USC in the Cotton Bowl. They got to play some of the, historically, some of the great football programs in the history of the sport this year that you just don't get a chance to play Oklahoma and USC in the same season very often. But I think that it was a fun year. It was not the year that everybody wanted it to be, a national champion or at least get into the playoff, and perhaps they can right that wrong next year.
Hey, before I let you go, big game for Ohio State in basketball tonight. First time that they have been ranked in 3 years, and they go to Northwestern, who's been struggling. Northwestern finally made the tournament for the first time ever last year, had a nice little run there, and they bring pretty much their entire team back. I think they lost like one starter from that team, and they're not playing well. They're 11-8 overall. Northwestern's 2-4 in the Big Ten. Ohio State, is as hot as anybody in the country, 15-4 overall, but 6-0 in Big Ten play. Here's the thing, though. they're not even playing at the little high school gym in Evanston because that's getting renovated. They're playing at the old Rosemont Horizon, which has a new name now, as you know. We were talking about this yesterday. DePaul used to play there for years as Northwestern's old high school gym's getting renovated. Here's the thing. People think that, Buckeyes are favored heavily in this game. Guess what? The point spread is 3. The Buckeyes are favored by 3. So Vegas thinks this is going to be a close game. Steve, your thoughts on this matchup tonight? By the way, 9 o'clock Eastern on Big Ten Network. Steve, what are your thoughts on this game?
Man, a lot of feelings here. I mean, who would have thought Ohio State would be 6-0 in the Big Ten at this point? So you start there. Chance to get to 7-0. There hasn't been. If they get to 7-0, Chris Holtmann becomes just the third coach in the history of the Big Ten to start his career with 7 conference wins and no losses. Just start, and no one's done it since like 1915. So he just matched Tom Davis, who did it at Iowa, 6-0. In 1987, and they had a great team in 1987. I'm trying to recall who the coach was before him. Maybe Raveling left to go to USC or something stupid, and he left a great team at Iowa for Tom Davis. He came in, cleaned up with it. But so many thoughts about this game. Northwestern, 2 games ago, they blew out Minnesota 83-60. McIntosh, their guard, had 16 assists in that game. Just stop and conjure that for a moment. So he's kind of like Aaron Kraft light. Who would have thought Sanjay Lumpkin would be the missing link? He was kind of the 5th wheel on that team last year, and he's the only starter not back. McIntosh is the point guard. You have Scotty Lindsey as the shooting guard. He's only shooting about 31%, though, behind the arc. Derek Pardon is an outstanding post player from Cleveland St. Joe's. He's a junior really coming into his own, and Caleb Lesson, Micah Potter, they're going to have their hands full with him. The key is they got to play great defense, which Ohio State has been doing. Held Rutgers in the 40s last game, just played outstanding defense against Michigan State as well, cooled them off. If they go in there, play great defense without fouling and hit some shots, and, Bates Diop, it was a down game for him, just 20 points his last time out. If he can get back up around 25, 28 points, I think that they can win this game. And I think it plays to their benefit. It's at Allstate Arena. They had 6,000 people there for the Minnesota game, so it's like a lot of people rolling around an empty bowl, as opposed to Welsh Ryan, which when they put 7,000 people in there, it can get loud in there. But I think it's an advantage that Ohio State's playing them in the bigger arena.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I mean, even though Ohio State's had good luck overall against Northwestern at Welsh Ryan Arena, there's been a lot of close games, a lot of super close games.
Yes.
I agree with you. I think this helps Ohio State. Go ahead.
Let me throw in 2 more quick stats. Over the last 20 years, Ohio State is 29-2 against Northwestern. They had a loss there like in 2009 when Ohio State made the NCAA tournament anyway. They lost out there with Mata and Mullins and Turner and those guys. And then the other loss was last year at home. They lost by 2 points at home to Northwestern. In my lifetime, I've been alive since February of '68, Ohio State has never lost back-to-back games to Northwestern. Just stop and conjure that. It hasn't happened since 1957. Wow. So, and it could happen today very easily. I mean, it would not be an upset if Northwestern wins this game, let me tell you, because they are capable of putting it together like they did against Minnesota, or laying a complete egg like they did Sunday at Indiana, lost by 20, shot 27% and had 17 turnovers. It's like a box of chocolates. You just don't know what you're going to get with Northwestern one game to the next.
Again, Vegas says this is a one-possession game, 3 points. I'll be curious if that line goes up a little bit, or maybe it'll drop a little bit. We'll see what happens. Great stuff, as always, out of Steve Helwagen. Thank you for the wisdom, Steve, and thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning in to the show. I appreciate it. Hope you have a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.